Hello friends, I'm Christy Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be making Christmas cards using Doodlebug Designs' adorable Gingerbread Kisses collection. Here's a quick look at the main products I'll be using in this video. I have the 6x6 paper pad of Doodlebug's Gingerbread Kisses collection and the coordinating odds and ends ephemera pack. I'll be using Paper Rose Studios Merry Christmas sentiment sheets. These are beautiful. They have lots of lovely foil finishes on them. For dies, I'll be using Scrapbook.com's snowflakes and also their nested arches. For colored cardstock, I have a variety from Scrapbook.com, cools, mixed metals, neutrals, peppermint, warms, and also their holographic mirror paper. I've gathered together some essential tools and I have them all inside a craft storage pouch from Scrapbook.com. I'll be using the Easy Grip ergonomic scissors, also the 5-inch scissors. I have a pair of reverse tweezers and also their deluxe adhesive roller. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I selected 2 different pattern papers and these are actually the front and back side of the same paper. There's a tone-on-tone teal with snowflakes and this really fun candy pattern paper. I cut both of them at an angle. If you put the 2 pieces together, this would be 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I'm layering them on some green cardstock, and this is from the Cools Smooth Cardstock collection. There is a slight gap between the 2 pattern paper pieces, but no worries, I'll be covering that up. I cut a 1/2-inch strip of pink cardstock, and this is from the Peppermint cardstock paper pad. I have double-sided adhesive tape on the back side. I'll adhere it, covering that gap between the 2 pattern paper pieces. And that strip is wider than my card. I'll simply flip it over, use my scissors, and trim off the extra. Then I'll put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base. For a sentiment, I'm adding Christmas hugs, and it has this beautiful silver foiling on it. I'll put adhesive on the back, and I'm adding it on the right side underneath the pink strip. So the very end of the sentiment piece will go off the edge of the card. I'll flip over my card, use my scissors to trim off the extra, so now it's flush on the right side. Then using some of the same green cardstock, I'm adding a strip on the left side of the sentiment, and that'll help balance out the card. I did cut the strip way longer than I need, so I just put adhesive on the very end. I'll adhere it on the card, flip it over, and trim off the extra. Underneath the sentiment, I'm adding a very narrow strip of the silver glitter paper. This is probably about 1/8 of an inch. To adhere it in place, I'm using Scrapbook.com's Artiste glue, putting just a tiny bit on the back of this strip, adhering it underneath the sentiment and that green section. Then I'll flip over the card, use my scissors to trim off the ends. So now it's flush on the right and left side of the card. Now I'll bring in some of the adorable ephemera pieces. I put all of them in one of Scrapbook.com's stack and sort trays. I will be popping up several of the ephemera pieces. I'm using some foam from Scrapbook.com. This is the 1mm thickness, so it adds just that little bit of dimension, but not a lot of bulk. I'll put foam on the back of the largest ephemera piece. Has a gingerbread man, a tree, and a few candies. Before adhering it down, I am adding a candy cane underneath that ephemera piece on the very right side. And the candy cane I'll adhere down using the Artiste glue. Now I'll add the large ephemera piece on top. I'll tuck a peppermint candy underneath the larger piece on the left side, and I am popping it up with more of the 1mm foam. Then the final ephemera piece has this stack of gumdrops. I'll put glue on the back and tuck it behind the other images on the left side. For embellishments, I'm using some shape sprinkles from the Gingerbread Kisses collection. These are the Warm Wishes shape sprinkles. It includes a fun variety of different colored hearts in different sizes, and the colors match beautifully with the Gingerbread Kisses paper. I'll put 3 hearts in the upper left-hand corner, red, pink, and white. For a final finishing touch, I'll use a glitter brush. This is the clear shimmer color. I'll add some pretty sparkle to several of the candies, the star on the top of the tree, and also the gingerbread man's bow. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The second card has a different sentiment and different ephemera pieces. I love all the fun colors and sweet images in this collection. For card design number 2, I selected 2 pattern papers. I have the gingerbread paper for the background and a tone-on-tone mini heart paper for the narrow strip that goes across the card. On the back side of one of the pattern papers, there's lots of narrow strips. Some have images, others have sentiments. I cut out the one that has cookies for Santa and some small red hearts. I put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back side and adhered it to the lower portion of the pink tone-on-tone pattern paper. I'll layer that piece on some brown cardstock, and the brown cardstock I'm using is from Scrapbook.com's Neutrals collection. Now I'll layer the background piece on the same brown cardstock, and for my cardstock layers I'm adding an additional 1/8 of an inch. The pattern paper for the background is 5 1/4 of an inch by 4 inches, and that brown cardstock layer is 5 3/8 of an inch by 4 1/8 of an inch. Then I'll put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I cut out 2 circle die cuts, one from white pearlescent cardstock and the other from the same brown cardstock. I'll adhere the 2 circles together using artiste glue. Before adhering the circle on the card, I will add a scrap cardstock piece behind it, just on the upper portion. Since I have all of those layers going across the card, the scrap cardstock piece on the back side will help keep the circle nice and level. To cut out that scrap piece, I simply held the piece of cardstock up to the circle, used the scissors to trim it out, and I just want to make sure it's slightly smaller than the circle so it's not visible. Then I'll adhere the circle die cut using artiste glue. Now I'll bring in some of the adorable ephemera pieces. I have 2 gingerbread cookies, a boy and a girl, and I will be popping them up using the 1mm foam. I'm cutting some smaller pieces of foam to make sure I have good coverage on the back of both of the cookies, and I'm using the 5-inch straight scissors to cut the foam. I'll add just one more small piece behind the arm. Now I'll remove the release paper and put both of the cookies on the circle die cut. And I'm putting them at a slight angle. The boy will be a little bit higher than the girl. And by putting the gingerbread cookies at different heights, I have enough room to add a sentiment. This is Merry Christmas, and it's a cut apart from the Doodlebug Gingerbread Kisses paper pad. I cut the right side at an angle just for some extra interest. And before adhering it to the card, I will add a very small piece of foam on the right side of the sentiment where it goes off of the circle die cut. And I'll put glue behind the rest of the sentiment and adhere it in place. I'm tucking the very left end of the sentiment underneath the gingerbread girl cookie. Now I'll add a couple of heart ephemera pieces, one in the same gingerbread brown color and the other in light pink. I'll adhere them above the 2 cookies. Using a scrap piece of brown cardstock, I'm cutting a small banner and adding it in the upper right-hand corner. I'm using the ergonomic scissors from Scrapbook.com. I'll first cut a fishtail on the bottom, then I'll cut the right side in slightly at an angle, flip it over, do the same thing on the other side, then I'll adhere it in place using the artiste glue. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll use the clear glitter brush and add a little bit of sparkle to the hearts, the bows, and also the buttons on the cookies. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The second card features different ephemera pieces and sentiment cut apart. The gingerbread cookie images are some of my favorite in the whole collection. Now moving on to card design number 3. I selected 2 pattern papers. I have this fun red and white plaid paper for the background And on the left side of the card, I'm using some of the leftover tone-on-tone snowflake paper in teal. I'll adhere that about 1/2 inch from the left side. I'm adding a narrow strip of red cardstock at the bottom of the card, and this is the same red I'm using for the background layer. And this red is from the Warms Smooth Cardstock paper pad. The narrow strip is about 5/8 of an inch. I'll first layer the background piece on the red cardstock, then add the narrow strip toward the bottom of the card. I'll put adhesive on the back, add my card front onto a card base, leaving 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Using the nested arches die set, I cut out a white arch from some pearlescent cardstock. I'll put glue on the back and adhere the arch on the card more on the right side. And I have the very bottom of it sitting on that narrow red strip of cardstock. Now I'll bring in the rest of the pieces for the card. This card is featuring this adorable Santa holding a banner with the sentiment, "Ho, ho, ho." I already have foam dimension on the back using more of the 1mm foam. Remove the release paper and add the Santa on the white arch. And I put him up high enough to add a sentiment underneath. The sentiment is the most wonderful time of the year, and this is one of the cut aparts from the paper pad. I'll also add a snowflake die cut. The snowflake die is from Scrapbook.com, and I use some of their holographic paper, so it has this beautiful sparkle to it. I'll put glue on the back and adhere the snowflake in the upper left-hand corner. And in the very center of the snowflake, I'm adding one of the red heart-shaped sprinkles. It does have adhesive on the back, but I'm adding a small drop of glue since I'm adhering it on some specialty cardstock. For a final finishing touch, using the clear glitter brush again, I'll add some sparkle on Santa's hat and also the trim on his coat. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. Very similar cards. I used a different Santa ephemera piece and sentiment cut apart. Now here's another look at the 6 cards I made using Doodlebug Designs Gingerbread Kisses collection. This is an adorable collection, and I love having the coordinating die cut images. And by using the sentiment cut aparts, I didn't need to do any stamping. Perfect if you need to put together some quick, adorable Christmas cards. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.